Kim Min-seo's marriage was a gilded cage, a debt-ridden contract arranged by the very man who ruined her family. Chairman Lee's greed forced his son Ji-hoon to become an unwilling accomplice, but he never imagined the Cinderella-wife held a secret more valuable than his entire empire. Min-seo's hidden power and quiet strength turned the tables, revealing a love forged not in wealth, but in a desperate, unlikely victory. Listen to the shocking turn this drama took and find out why justice, in the end, prevailed. From the outside, Kim Min-seo's life was a breathtaking fairy tale. Her story was told in every magazine, whispered about in every cafe. A simple girl, from a family whose fortunes had crumbled, had captured the heart of Lee Ji-hoon, the heir to the powerful Lee conglomerate. Their whirlwind romance had captivated the entire country, a modern-day Cinderella story played out on the grandest stage. Min-seo, once a quiet student, was now the wife of one of South Korea's most eligible bachelors, living within the walls of a mansion so vast it felt like a palace. The public saw a love story. They saw a dream come true. But as Min-seo moved through the endless corridors of their opulent home, she felt like a ghost haunting the halls of her own life. The reality was a stark, cold contrast to the headlines. Her husband, Ji-hoon, was a distant figure, a man she barely knew. He was rarely home, and when he was, his gaze was always far away, as if looking at something only he could see. His smile, often seen in the tabloids, was a polite, carefully constructed mask for her. It never reached his eyes. Min-seo knew the truth behind the polished facade. Their marriage was not an act of love, but a harsh, calculated contract. It was a desperate bid to save her family from a crushing debt that had threatened to swallow them whole. In a cruel twist of fate, Ji-hoon's family, the very one she had married into, had purchased her family's company after their bankruptcy. The marriage was the price for their clemency, a transaction that ensured her family would be spared from total ruin. Min-seo was a pawn in a game she didn't understand, a game with rules that were never explained to her, a game that made her feel a profound sense of helplessness. Her predicament was a quiet tragedy, one that would cause anyone who truly knew her story to feel a deep compassion for her plight. One evening, alone in the cavernous living room, Min-seo heard a sound that broke the oppressive silence of the mansion. It was a hushed, angry voice coming from Ji-hoon's private study. She moved closer, drawn by a mixture of curiosity and concern. The door was ajar, and she could hear him on the phone, his voice raw with a panic she had never imagined he was capable of. "The merger is failing, Father," he pleaded, his voice low but filled with an undeniable tremor. "The debt is far, far larger than we thought. I don't know what to do." The words hit Min-seo like a physical blow. The cold, impenetrable man she had imagined her husband to be was gone. In his place was a young man filled with a raw, desperate fear. His voice was strained, filled with the same kind of anxiety that had plagued her own family for months. He wasn't the cold, rich prince she had married. He was trapped just like her. He was buried under a weight he couldn't lift, a burden that was invisible to the world. Min-seo, standing in the shadows, realized with a shocking clarity that the man she had been forced to marry was just as much a prisoner as she was. Their gilded cage held not one, but two lost souls, bound together by a secret neither of them had the courage to share. This revelation was the first crack in the perfect, polished surface of their lives, and with it, a new, unsettling emotion began to take hold: intrigue. Min-seo's mind raced, a whirlwind of new thoughts and possibilities. The cold, impenetrable fortress she had built around her heart began to crack. The man she had thought was her savior, the person who had bought her family's future at the cost of her freedom, was himself in trouble. His family, the powerful Lee conglomerate known for its immense wealth and influence, was not invincible after all. It was on the brink of financial ruin. The debt he spoke of on the phone wasn't a small sum. It was a mountain, a crushing weight threatening to bury everything they owned. This revelation sparked a powerful intrigue in Min-seo, an unexpected curiosity that pushed her past her initial resentment. Why had his family hidden this? The Lees had a reputation to maintain, a public image of invulnerability. But more importantly, why was he burdened with this alone? She began to see the facade he presented to the world, the distant gaze, the polite smile, not as a sign of arrogance, but as a shield. He was carrying an immense weight, and he had no one to share it with. Min-seo started paying closer attention to her husband, an observation born not of affection, but of a quiet, shared understanding of pain. She noticed the deep, dark circles under his eyes that no amount of sleep could erase. She saw the way he would flinch at every ringing phone, his body tensing in anticipation of more bad news. He would often stare into the distance, his expression distant and hollow, as if a great invisible burden rested on his shoulders. He was a prisoner of his own circumstances, just as she was. A quiet empathy, a sense of shared misery began to grow within her. It was a fragile, burgeoning feeling. She wasn't acting out of love, but out of a deep-seated desire to see another person, trapped in a similar cage, find some small measure of comfort. She started leaving small home-cooked meals for him in his study, knowing he often worked through the night, forgetting to eat. She would simply place a steaming bowl of rice or a warm cup of tea on his desk, a silent offering, then disappear before he could acknowledge her. Ji-hoon at first was confused by her actions. He had married her out of duty, a silent sacrifice to appease his father, a man who saw marriage as a business transaction, not a partnership. He had expected a quiet, compliant wife, a trophy to be displayed at corporate events. He had never expected a woman who seemed to see past his carefully constructed facade. He felt a strange unease, a flicker of something he couldn't quite name. One night, exhausted and overwhelmed, Ji-hoon returned to his study to find her asleep at his desk. She was surrounded by a sea of financial documents she had clearly been trying to understand, her brow furrowed even in slumber. Her presence there, in the very heart of his private crisis, was an act of kindness that transcended their arranged marriage. It was an offering of solidarity, born from a secret of her own and a debt that had entwined their lives. Her quiet efforts to understand his pain, her willingness to share in his burden, deepened the mystery of her true intentions, pushing the narrative forward into a place neither of them had expected to go. The financial crisis within the Lee family was no secret among the elite, but to the rest of the world, they were as solid as ever. The whispers in exclusive clubs and boardrooms spoke of Chairman Lee's catastrophic series of reckless investments. He had bet the company's future on ventures that failed spectacularly, and now the Lee conglomerate was hemorrhaging money. The once unbreakable empire was crumbling from within, and Ji-hoon was left to pick up the pieces. He was desperately trying to secure a massive loan to prevent total collapse, but every door was closed to him. His family's reputation, once a source of strength, was now a liability. He felt a deep sense of guilt and shame, a belief that his own incompetence was to blame for the impending doom. He felt unworthy of his name, and the weight of his father's mistakes pressed down on him, suffocating him. He was losing hope, sinking into a pit of quiet despair. In a moment of quiet despair, he found himself wandering aimlessly through the mansion. He saw a light on in the kitchen and entered to find Min-seo. She was seated at the large marble island, a small, unassuming wooden box open before her. With delicate, almost reverent movements, she was carefully arranging a handful of antique jewelry. They were simple pieces, not the flashy, extravagant jewels he was used to seeing on the women of his social circle. "These belong to my grandmother," she said, her voice soft as if speaking of a cherished memory. "They're not much, but they're all I have." Ji-hoon was taken aback. This was a direct, shocking contrast to everything he thought he knew about her.
He had believed her to be a simple, debt-ridden girl, a helpless pawn in his family's game. But as he looked at the jewelry, a strange feeling washed over him. He wasn't a jewelry expert, but even he could tell these pieces were unique. Their craftsmanship was unlike anything he had ever seen, the metal having a subtle, almost ethereal quality to it. Then she spoke of her family's history, not with shame, but with a quiet pride. She told him that her ancestors were the famed Seo family, a clan of artisans renowned for their exquisite jewelry craftsmanship centuries ago. Their secrets, lost to time, included the art of crafting unique, rare alloys, materials of incredible strength and purity. Her family had guarded this secret for generations, an inheritance more valuable than any bank account. This was the truth. She had brought this secret with her into their marriage, not as a desperate girl seeking salvation, but as the keeper of a hidden treasure, a treasure that could save them all. The revelation hit Ji-hoon with a jolt of shock, a powerful twist that made him question everything he thought he knew about her, about his father, and about their marriage. The Cinderella he had married wasn't just a poor girl. She was a hidden treasure, a key to their salvation, a secret waiting to be unlocked. He had seen her as a victim, a casualty of his family's ambition, but she was, in fact, the one with the real power.
Ji-hoon was left speechless, a storm of emotions raging within him. Awe at the sheer genius of her family's secret mingled with a deep, consuming shame. The Cinderella he had married, the woman he had dismissed as a pawn, was the one with the real power all along. She hadn't married him for his money. She had brought with her a secret that could save not only his family, but also free her own from the burden of their past. The weight of his guilt crushed him, a heavy realization that he had been so blind, so arrogant. He was a rich man who had nothing to offer, while she, a woman of perceived low status, held the key to his entire world. He now understood the cruel irony of their situation. Min-seo's family secret was not just a formula for some ordinary alloy. It was a lost, ancient technique for a revolutionary material. This unique compound, with properties that made it perfect for modern electronics, was highly sought after by the biggest tech companies in the world. His father, in his desperate scramble for a solution, had unknowingly forced his son to marry the very person who held the key to the company's survival. It was a twist of fate so profound, so absolute, that it felt almost unreal. Min-seo, seeing the shift in his expression from despair to stunned realization, stepped forward. Her voice was steady, her demeanor calm, the quiet strength she possessed now on full display. With this new knowledge, she presented her offer. It was a deal, not for her own gain, but for justice and a fresh start. "I will give you the formula," she began, her eyes meeting his directly for the first time, "but only if you agree to 2 conditions." Ji-hoon held his breath, expecting a demand for wealth or power. He was prepared to give her anything, to atone for his family's actions and his own coldness. "First," she continued, "you must give my family back their company. You will restore it to them, free of the debts your family imposed." The demand was simple, yet just. It was a plea for justice, a desire to right the wrongs that had started this whole ordeal. Ji-hoon felt a wave of relief wash over him. She wasn't asking for money, but for fairness. "And second," she said, her voice softening slightly but her gaze remaining firm, "we will start our marriage over. This time, it will be real." Ji-hoon was stunned. The second condition was not a business transaction, but a request for a genuine human connection. She wasn't asking for a title or a lifestyle. She was asking for a real partnership, a true relationship built on trust and respect, not on a lie. Her motives, initially shrouded in mystery and assumed to be about self-preservation, were now crystal clear and deeply honorable. She hadn't been a captive wife. She had been a silent guardian, waiting for the right moment to act. The cold tension that had defined their relationship melted away, replaced by a profound sense of relief and hope.
Hope that this desperate offer was the beginning of a genuine love story, a victory born from honesty and shared vulnerability.
Ji-hoon agreed without a moment of hesitation. The choice was clear: pride or salvation. He chose salvation, not just for his company, but for his soul. With Min-seo's secret formula now in his hands, he was no longer a desperate man begging for loans. He was the owner of a revolutionary new technology, the keeper of an ancient art that had suddenly found its place in the future. Armed with this knowledge, he secured a deal with a major tech company, a partnership that promised to change the industry forever. The innovative alloy, with its unmatched properties, didn't just save the Lee company from the brink of bankruptcy. It launched it into a new era of prosperity, one built on a foundation of genuine innovation rather than reckless speculation. The world watched in amazement as the struggling conglomerate not only recovered but flourished, becoming a leader in a new, cutting-edge market. The chairman, once a titan of industry, was humbled. The crisis had stripped him of his arrogance, and the truth of Min-seo's brilliance and grace left him speechless. He saw the woman he had treated as a mere pawn had been the one to save everything he held dear. He agreed to all her terms, returning the Kim family's company and offering a heartfelt apology, not just for his actions, but for his short-sightedness. He had been so focused on power that he had completely missed the true source of strength right in front of him. This crisis had revealed the strength in both of them. It was a story of a hidden power, a woman who possessed a secret that was more valuable than any fortune. It was a story of a debt that was not just financial, but deeply emotional. A moral debt that Ji-hoon was now determined to repay with his respect and love. The entire narrative had turned on its head. The seemingly weak Cinderella was the true power player, the quiet force that had held the key to everything. The audience, having followed Min-seo's journey from a pawn to a hero, feels a profound sense of admiration. Her quiet strength and intelligence had saved not only her family, but Ji-hoon's as well. She hadn't sought revenge or personal enrichment. She had sought justice and a true partnership. She had proven that her worth was not defined by her family's debt or her husband's wealth, but by her own character and an invaluable secret passed down through generations. Her victory was not just a triumph of business, but a triumph of spirit, a powerful testament to the idea that true strength is not always loud, but is often found in the most unexpected places. In the end, their relationship was no longer a business contract, but a genuine partnership. It was forged in the heat of a crisis, built on the solid ground of mutual respect and a love that had grown from the ashes of their past. The secrets that had once created a chasm between them were now the very foundation of their bond. Ji-hoon and Min-seo stood together, hand in hand, looking out at the glittering city from their now debt-free home. The view was no longer a symbol of his family's immense wealth, but a testament to their shared victory. The marriage that had begun as a prison of secrets had become a sanctuary of truth and trust. They had both been trapped, living lives dictated by others' expectations. Ji-hoon had been a prisoner of his father's ambitions and a looming unseen debt. Min-seo had been a prisoner of a contract and her family's desperate plight. But by confronting their fears and sharing their truths, they had found freedom together. Their love was a triumph, a testament to the idea that true connection is born not of fairy tales and grand gestures, but of shared struggles and hidden truths. It was their greatest victory, one that transcended financial success. The triumph was in their trust, in the way they looked at each other, seeing not a business partner or a contract-bound spouse, but a genuine, loving partner. For the audience, this was a triumphant conclusion, an emotional catharsis that released the tension and heartache of the earlier parts of their story. The initial compassion for Min-seo's plight had evolved into awe and respect. And the mystery of Ji-hoon's distant gaze was replaced by the clarity of his genuine love. They had found not just happiness, but a deep, unbreakable bond, a love that was stronger because it had been tested by fire.
Their story became a legend in its own right, not for its opulence or drama, but for its authenticity. It was a powerful reminder that true strength and worth are often hidden beneath the surface, waiting for the right moment to be revealed. They had learned that a beautiful facade can hide a painful truth, and that a quiet, seemingly insignificant person can hold the key to everything. In their love, they found a redemption that was more valuable than any fortune, and a happiness that was truly and completely their own.